All right. Looks like we've got some really interesting stuff to dig into today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely seems like a lot of good material here.
Yeah, you're clearly ready to tackle this whole, financial freedom thing.
Absolutely.
And you've been doing your homework? I mean, look at all these notes and
I've been
articles.
doing my research.
So let's get right into it. What's the mission for this deep dive?
I think the big thing for me is like, how do I actually escape this debt cycle and,
Right.
start building some real wealth?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. One thing that really jumped out at me from all the stuff you sent over was this whole idea of a credit culture.
Hmm.
Like it's almost like we're conditioned to think that debt is just, a normal part of life.
Yeah, for sure. Everywhere you look,
Right, like credit cards, loans, it's everywhere.
you're bombarded with messages like, buy now, pay later.
Mm.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
And those interest rates, man, they can really sneak up on you.
Absolutely. Those high interest rates, they're designed to keep you in debt.
Yeah, even a small purchase can, like,
Oh.
turn into this huge burden if you're not careful.
Especially if you're only making those minimum payments.
Okay, so let's say you're already in that cycle, right? You've got some debt hanging over you. What do you do about it?
Well, there are a couple of methods that you've highlighted here in your research:
Right.
the Snowball method and the Avalanche method.
Okay, so Snowball, Avalanche. What's the difference?
So the Snowball method, it's all about momentum.
Okay.
You focus on paying off your smallest debts first, regardless of the interest rate.
So it's more of a psychological thing.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you that feeling of accomplishment early on, which can really help you stay motivated to keep going.
I can see how that would be helpful.
And then you've got the Avalanche method,
Mhm.
which is more strategic. You tackle the highest interest debts first, which can save you money in the long run.
Interesting. So one is more about like the emotional side and the other is more like the numbers, the strategy.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it really comes down to what works for you,
Yeah.
your personality, your
Yeah.
specific situation.
Right. Right. There's no magic bullet, right? It's about
Definitely not.
finding what works for you and sticking with it.
Consistency and discipline are key here.
Discipline. Okay. Speaking of discipline, we should probably talk about budgeting.
Yeah.
You flagged this 50-30-20 rule in your research.
Right. It's a great framework. 50% of your income for needs, 30% for wants, and then 20% for savings and debt repayment.
That sounds pretty reasonable. Though I'm curious.
Yeah.
That 50% for wants, that seems
Yeah.
pretty generous. Is that realistic for most people?
I mean, it's a guideline, right?
Right.
You can always adjust the percentages based on, your individual circumstances and goals.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess the important thing is just being aware of where
Yeah.
your money's going.
Absolutely. And that's where tracking your expenses comes in, which you've done some research on too with those different
Yeah.
apps.
Yeah, those are interesting. It can be kind of eye-opening to actually see where your money goes, right?
We really can.
I know for me, I was surprised to see how much I was spending on
Yeah.
stuff that I didn't even really like need or enjoy.
It's easy to lose track,
Totally.
but once you start tracking,
Yeah.
you can start making more conscious choices about your spending.
So it's about being like intentional with your money.
Exactly. It's about aligning your spending with your values, with your goals.
Okay. All right. And speaking of being intentional, there's this concept you highlighted called living below your means.
Yeah.
And I love this quote you pulled out. Millionaires live like they're broke, and broke people live like they're millionaires.
Right. It really hits home
It's powerful.
that true wealth isn't about, you know, keeping up with the Joneses.
Right.
It's about financial security.
Yeah. Yeah. Having that freedom to live life on your own terms.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about escaping debt, managing money wisely, but what about the income side of things?
Right.
Making more money. You mentioned diversifying income streams, maybe even changing careers.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting, because having multiple streams of income, that can really provide a safety net, right?
I can see how that would be like less stressful, less risky.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can really accelerate your progress towards financial freedom.
Okay, and how do you actually go about doing that?
Well, there's a whole range of possibilities. You could start a side hustle,
Right?
freelancing, investing. You've actually highlighted some interesting side hustle ideas in your notes.
Yeah. Yeah, there were some good ones in there. What stood out to you?
Well, there's online tutoring, virtual assisting,
Hmm.
creating and selling digital products. There are so many options these days.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do online now.
It really is. The key is to Identify your skills and passions and find a way to monetize them.
Right, like what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing?
Yeah, exactly. And be proactive about it.
Yeah.
Take ownership of your earning potential.
Okay, yeah. And it seems like this whole, gig economy thing has really opened up a lot of opportunities for people
Oh,
to
yeah. It's completely changed the game.
work from home, set their own hours, all that.
Absolutely.
And you also mentioned upskilling, which I think is important. Learning new skills that are in high demand that can lead to, better jobs.
Right. Higher paying jobs, more opportunities for advancement.
Okay, so you're generating more income, but how do you make the money work for you?
That's where investing comes in.
Right. And you spent quite a bit of time researching that.
Yeah, I did.
So what's the basic idea behind investing?
Well, it's essentially putting your money to work to generate more money.
Okay, yeah.
And one of the most powerful concepts here is compound interest.
I see you circled that a few times.
Yeah, I did. It's often called the eighth wonder of the world.
Wow. Okay. So it must be pretty important.
It is.
What exactly is it?
It's the idea that your earnings can generate their own earnings,
Okay.
which leads to exponential growth over time.
So it's like a snowball rolling downhill, getting bigger and bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the earlier you start investing, the more time that snowball has to grow.
Makes sense. So even if you're only investing small amounts, it's still beneficial to start early.
Absolutely. It can have a huge impact on your long-term financial growth.
Gotcha. But investing does come with risks, right?
It does. And that's where the concept of risk tolerance comes in.
Yeah, you circled that a few times as well.
I did.
What does that mean, risk tolerance?
It's basically your comfort level with the possibility of losing money on your investments.
Oh,
Some people are more comfortable with high-risk, high-return investments, while others prefer a more conservative approach.
right.
Lower risk, potentially lower returns.
So it's about knowing yourself and your financial goals and choosing investments that,
Yeah,
align with your comfort level.
exactly. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's about finding the right balance for you.
Okay. That makes sense. So many options when it comes to investing.
Yeah, it can be a little overwhelming.
It can be. And you really dug into those different options.
I did.
Stocks, bonds, real estate.
Even starting your own business, which is
Right. That's a whole
a
other
whole other level.
ball game. But it's interesting to see like all the different ways you can potentially make your money grow.
And they all come with different risks and potential rewards.
Right. It's about finding that balance again.
It is.
I noticed you highlighted a section about index funds.
Yeah.
What's the deal with those?
Index funds they're a great way to diversify your investments across a wide range of companies,
Okay.
which can really help reduce risk.
So instead of trying to pick like individual stocks,
Yeah.
you're kind of investing in the whole market.
Exactly. You're basically betting on the overall performance of the market.
Interesting. And is it a more like hands-off approach?
It can be. Yeah. A lot of index funds are managed passively,
Okay.
which means they have lower fees compared to actively managed funds.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
And they're really popular with long-term investors who are looking for steady growth.
Steady growth.
Right.
Okay. And speaking of long-term, you also did a lot of research on homeownership.
I did.
Seems like a lot of people see that as like a key part of
Yeah.
achieving financial freedom.
It makes sense.
Hmm.
For a lot of people, owning a home, it represents stability, security,
Yeah.
a sense of accomplishment. And it's a significant investment that can build equity over time.
Right. But it can also be really daunting, especially if you're a first-time buyer.
Absolutely.
Like, where do you even begin?
Well, your research actually walks through the steps pretty clearly,
Okay, good.
starting with building a good credit score.
Okay, yeah, that's important. Why is that so crucial?
Your credit score, it's basically like your financial report card.
Okay.
It tells lenders how responsible you are with borrowing money.
So the higher your score, the better,
Exactly. A higher score means you're considered less risky.
which translates into lower interest rates on loans.
Right, including mortgages.
So a good credit score can actually save you money in the long run.
Absolutely. It can make a huge difference in the terms you're offered.
Okay, yeah. I guess it's not just about getting approved for a loan. It's about
Right.
getting approved for a loan with good terms.
Exactly.
Makes sense. So good credit score, that's step one. What's next?
Saving for a down payment.
Right. And I saw you highlighted a section about different types of mortgages.
Yeah, there are a lot of options out there.
Fixed rate, adjustable rate, all that.
It's important to do your research and understand the different types
Right.
because each one has its pros and cons.
Yeah.
And the best choice will depend on your individual circumstances. But it's also crucial to be realistic about what you can afford.
Yeah, you circled that phrase a few times.
I did, yeah.
It's tempting to kind of stretch yourself financially to get that,
Mhm.
dream home, but it sounds like that can be
It can be dangerous, yeah.
dangerous.
You
Yeah.
need to factor in all the costs associated with home ownership,
Right.
not just the mortgage payment,
Property taxes, insurance, all that.
all of that. Maintenance, potential repairs, it all adds up.
So it's not just about qualifying for the mortgage, it's about making sure that those monthly payments actually fit comfortably within your budget.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between your housing aspirations and your overall financial well-being.
Right, right. You don't want to be house poor.
You don't.
Okay, so we've talked about building good financial habits, generating income, investing, home ownership, but you dove into the kind of emotional side of finances, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, it's often overlooked, but it's so important.
It is, because our emotions and beliefs about money, they can really influence our
They can
financial decisions.
Absolutely.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure. Think about someone who grew up in a household where money was always tight.
Okay.
They might develop this scarcity mindset.
Scarcity mindset.
Yeah, like they're constantly afraid they'll never have enough.
Right. Right.
And that fear can lead to impulsive spending or even an inability to invest, even if they have the means to do so.
It's almost like they're sabotaging their own financial success.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, someone who grew up with, responsible financial role models,
Mm-hmm.
they might feel more confident and empowered in managing their own money.
So our early experiences with money, they really shape our
Yeah,
attitudes and behaviors.
they really do.
That's fascinating.
And that's why it's so important to be aware of those beliefs.
Right.
And to work to change them if they're holding you back.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And your notes actually mention some techniques for doing that.
They do.
What stood out to you?
One powerful approach is to challenge those negative thoughts and replace them with positive affirmations.
Okay.
So instead of thinking, I'll never be able to save enough,
Right.
you might say, I am capable of managing my money effectively and building a secure future.
So it's about reframing your perspective.
It is.
Creating a more positive, empowering
Exactly.
mindset.
And it might sound simple, but practicing gratitude can also have a huge impact.
Gratitude. Okay. I'm curious, how does gratitude play into our finances?
Well, when we focus on what we're grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
we shift our perspective from one of scarcity to one of abundance.
Okay.
We start to appreciate what we have
Right.
rather than constantly longing for what we don't.
It's about finding contentment in the present while still, striving for a better future.
Absolutely.
And I can see how that sense of contentment could lead to more rational financial decisions.
It can, yeah. You're less likely to make those impulsive purchases or overspend when you feel grateful for what you already have.
So gratitude isn't just a nice emotion, it's actually a
But
tool for financial well-being.
it really is.
Interesting. And another practical tip that came up a lot in your research was the power of automation.
Yeah, you highlighted that quite a bit.
I did. Why is automation so important?
Well, when you automate your finances,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's saving, investing, even paying bills,
Right.
you're essentially taking the decision-making out of the equation.
Okay.
You're setting up systems that work for you even when you're not actively thinking about them.
It's like putting your finances on autopilot.
Exactly. And it's one of those effective ways to ensure consistency.
Right.
So, for example, you could set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your savings account each month.
So you're saving money before you even have a chance to spend it.
Exactly. And you can do the same thing with investing
Set up those automatic contributions.
to your retirement accounts, investment portfolios. Yeah.
So you're not relying on willpower. You're making it happen.
It's a game changer. It really is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And one more thing you highlighted that I think is really valuable is the importance of negotiating.
Mm-hmm. Negotiating is so important.
It is. Why do you think that is?
Well, if we connect it to the bigger picture, it's about advocating for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
getting the best possible terms in any financial transaction.
So negotiating a lower interest rate on a loan.
Yeah, asking for a discount on a service, even negotiating a higher salary.
So it's about recognizing that you have the power to influence those outcomes.
You're not just a passive recipient. You can
Right.
you can actually shape the terms of those agreements.
And you may be surprised at how often people are willing to negotiate,
You would be surprised.
especially if you approach it the right way.
Yeah, with confidence and respect.
It's not about being aggressive. It's about being assertive, knowing your worth.
Knowing your worth, exactly.
I like that. And, one last piece of advice that really resonated with me from your research was to embrace the journey.
Ah, yes, the journey.
Financial freedom, it's not a destination,
It's a process.
it's a process, yeah.
There will be ups and downs,
For sure.
setbacks and triumphs.
Right.
But as long as you're learning, growing, making progress, you're on the right track.
I love that. It takes the pressure off feeling like we need to have it all figured out,
Yeah,
right now.
We don't. It's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, yeah.
Learn from them and keep moving forward.
And there are so many resources available to help us along the way.
There are.
Financial advisors, online communities, books, articles.
It's all out there.
So you don't have to do this alone.
You don't have to.
That's a good reminder.
It is.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
I want to leave you with one final question to ponder.
Okay, shoot.
What one habit will you commit to changing today
Ooh, that's a good one.
to start moving towards that financial future you desire?
Love it.
And remember, even the smallest change,
Right.
when implemented consistently over time,
Yeah.
can make a world of difference.
It can. It can.
It's been amazing diving into this topic with you,
It has.
exploring your research, unpacking all these insights.
It's been a journey.
It has. And you're clearly on a path towards, greater financial empowerment.
I appreciate that.
I have no doubt you'll achieve amazing things.
Thank you.
Wow, we've really covered a lot of ground here.
We have. It's amazing how much you've managed to pack into your research.
I try to be thorough.
You've been very thorough. It's impressive.
Well, I want to make sure I'm, covering all the bases.
You've definitely done that. It's clear you're serious about taking control of your financial future.
I am. I really am. But, sometimes it feels a little overwhelming.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
Like, where do I even start?
Right, right. It's easy to get lost in the big picture, all those big concepts we talked about.
Debt, investing, homeownership, it can be a lot.
It can, but I think, one of the most important things is to focus on those small, actionable steps you can take right now.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What would you say is, the most impactful first step?
Something you highlighted in your research that I completely agree with is creating a budget and tracking your expenses.
Right, right. We touched on that earlier.
You did.
But I think it's worth repeating. Why is that so foundational?
Because it shines a light on your spending habits,
Makes the invisible visible.
Exactly.
I like that.
Without a budget, without a system for tracking, it's so easy for money to just slip through your fingers.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
And you don't even realize where it went.
Exactly. So a budget gives you that plan.
Right.
And tracking helps you stay accountable to that plan.
Exactly. Once you see where your money's actually going, then you can start making conscious choices about where you want it to go.
So it's all about awareness.
Awareness and intentionality. Yeah.
Intentionality. Okay. And what about, we talked about the emotional side of things, our beliefs and attitudes about money.
Right, right.
How do we overcome those mental blocks?
One thing that I thought was really interesting that you highlighted was the idea of reframing your self-talk.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
We all have those negative scripts running through our heads about money.
I'm not good with money, or I'll never be able to afford that.
Exactly.
Yeah, those can be so powerful.
They can become self-fulfilling prophecies.
But we can change them.
Yeah. Instead of saying, I can't afford that, ask yourself, how can I make this happen?
Okay, so it's about shifting from a mindset of limitation to a mindset of possibility.
Exactly.
I like that. And, you mentioned gratitude earlier.
Gratitude is so important.
How does gratitude play into all of this?
When you focus on what you're grateful for, it shifts your perspective from scarcity to abundance. You start appreciating what you have instead of longing for what you don't.
And that can actually lead to better financial decisions.
It can, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're content, you're less likely to make those impulsive purchases.
Makes sense. So gratitude, it's not just a nice feeling, it's actually a powerful tool.
It is. It is.
Okay, and one more thing that came up a lot in your research, automation.
Ah, yes, automation.
I highlighted that quite a bit.
You did.
What is it about automation that makes such a big difference?
It takes the decision-making out of the equation.
Okay.
You set up systems that work for you, even when you're not thinking about it.
It's like you're putting your finances on autopilot.
Exactly. So, set up automatic transfers to your savings account, to your investment accounts.
So you're saving and investing before you even have a chance to spend the money.
Exactly.
I love it.
It's a game changer.
Okay, and one last piece of advice that really resonated with me, the importance of negotiating.
Negotiating is so important.
It is. Why is it so crucial?
It's about advocating for yourself, getting the best possible terms in any financial transaction.
So whether it's negotiating a lower interest rate on a loan
Hmm.
or asking for a raise.
It's all about knowing your worth and being willing to ask for what you deserve.
And you might be surprised how often people are willing to negotiate.
You'd be surprised, yeah.
Hmm.
Especially if you approach it with confidence and respect.
It's not about being aggressive.
No, it's about being assertive.
Knowing your worth, yeah. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, is there one final thought you'd like to leave our listener with?
Something that really struck me from your research was this idea of embracing the journey.
Ah, yes, the journey.
Financial freedom, it's not a destination, it's a process.
It's a process, right? There are going to be ups and downs,
Absolutely.
setbacks, wins.
But as long as you're learning and growing, you're on the right track.
And we don't have to do it alone.
We don't. There are so many resources available, people to help us along the way.
I love that. It's been incredible diving into this topic with you.
That would be fun.
Exploring your research, unpacking all these insights.
It's been a journey.
It has, and I have no doubt that you'll achieve all your financial goals.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're clearly on the right path, and I can't wait to see what you accomplish.
I'm excited for the future.
Me too. And to all our listeners out there, remember, the journey to financial freedom starts with a single step. So what will yours be?